Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to discuss something that gets brought up as a very controversial topic in this community. You oftentimes hear people say things like, nothing works unless you do, anabolics and other steroids are just kind of icing on the cake, they give you the finishing touches. People who use gear still have to train really hard to get results, all of these different things. And I'm not going to deny that anabolics allow you to train harder. That's something we've discussed in the past a lot. Yes, you can train a lot harder on them, recover a lot better. So oftentimes when people say, someone works really hard or they work inhumanly hard, that's actually indicative of drug use. It's not a good defense at all for their natural status. That is the worst defense you could possibly give, because naturals actually have recovery limits and workload limits that people on drugs don't have to follow. And as most of you guys know, many drugs are basically motivation in a bottle. They affect the brain. But back to the point of people always say they're the icing on the cake, or they don't work unless you lift hard. There are other YouTube channels that say this. They want to deny that actually it is the drugs that is giving them most of their results, not their actual knowledge of training. And I'm going to link for you guys a study down below. I've linked this before and discussed this topic before. But the point I want to make is that, first of all, we took a study to where we gave men, and this study's been replicated several times. This is just one of the most comprehensive ones. That's why I like to use this one. If you guys dig around, you guys can find at least a dozen different studies that produce similar results under laboratory conditions at universities, to where they strictly monitor that one. But this one, I really like it because they did all sorts of blood serum tests, they did strength tests, they did DEXA scans on these men so they can determine exactly how much muscle they gained, to determine if it was water retention or not. And on this one, because a lot of people when you bring this up say, well, these guys just gained a bunch of water weight. No, they didn't. They used DEXA scans, the most sophisticated technology we have to measure body composition, fluid balance, fat, muscle, everything. These men gained muscle with no additional percentage in water retention. So none of their gain in muscle weight is from holding additional water beyond what muscle tissue is supposed to hold, according to their findings. And what they found is that young men who were put on 600 milligrams of prescription testosterone, prescription American grade, FDA grade testosterone per week over the course of 20 weeks gained an average of 18 pounds of muscle mass while losing fat and without lifting weights. We know that noob gains, we call noob gains in the gym, as every expert in the world who studies hypertrophy and studies exercise science, we know that noob gains, guys only gain 1 to 2 pounds of muscle per month on a really good program, eating enough food from their noob gains, which are the best gains you're going to make in your life. That means over the course of 20 weeks, 5 months, about 10 pounds of muscle is about what you should expect in the best case scenario. These guys gained 18 without lifting weights. The guys were not only put on a diet where they monitored it, these guys were consuming 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, which means most of them were on about 100 grams of protein. No ultra high protein diets, because actually high protein intake is overrated for gaining muscle. It's great for holding on to muscle when you cut, but for gaining muscle, you don't need as much protein as people think. And your evidence is a study like this. You actually only need a few additional grams of protein every day to gain large amounts of muscle mass. If you do the math on it yourself in your head and realize what's going on, you don't need ultra high protein intakes to gain muscle rapidly. You just need a little additional protein. Well, this study shows it, because anabolics can't create protein in your diet magically. You can't create protein out of nothing. It's something your body's not capable of doing. It's essential. These guys gained 18 pounds of muscle on about 100 grams of protein. But back to the other point, more importantly, they did it without exercising. These were all men who had previously lifted weights. They were told to stop lifting. So for the 20 weeks, they were restricted from doing weightlifting, resistance training of any type, and told not to engage in any strenuous exercise, which even means any sort of high-intensity cardio, conditioning work, GBP work was out. They're allowed to do basic exercise for their health, like cardio, but not high-intensity cardio. So they were took off of any sort of intense training regimens. And these guys averaged muscle gains that were higher than noob gains without lifting. While basically sitting on the couch eating 100 grams of protein a day, they put on 17 to 18 pounds of muscle mass in 20 weeks. More than people get on really good novice programs who max out their noob gains. Guys, noob gains do not go that high. So when people try to say that hard work is more important than drugs at the end of the day, the evidence, and we have it in controlled scientific studies, seems to refute that. When you have guys who come in and they gain muscle sitting on their ass on the couch, when they're put on enough prescription grade, human grade Testosterone, not the crappy stuff people are getting sometimes at their gym or the underground lab stuff, but the good stuff. They're gaining more muscle than people who lift weights on really good programs. So let that sink in when someone talks to you about, well, it's just icing on the cake, and this person's results are purely a result of their knowledge of training. They must know a lot about training. They must be an expert on training because they're getting good results even though they're on drugs. Well, that's not always the case. Yes, they might actually be really knowledgeable about training. It is possible, it is very possible, and it oftentimes happens that someone knows a tremendous amount about training and training programming while on drugs. But the fact that someone's gaining muscle rapidly while on drugs is not indicative of all that they know anything about training. In fact, we've got studies like this showing that it can happen without even touching a weight. So think on that one for a while, guys. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. If you guys enjoyed this video, please remember to click like down below. I've included the entire study down below for you guys. So I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.